Hey guys, this is Brendan here, and this week we are talking about food practices in relationship to our personal practice path. So this week's question comes from Sarah. I will post all of the information and the question in the bottom box below, but it covers multiple sections that I'm going to go through this week. As you can see, the regular hosts are a whole assortment of different personal dietary path related choices. And for me personally, I don't really have dietary practice currently related to my personal practice. It just isn't a thing currently. It has been in the past before. I've been vegetarian for a few years. Currently, I just am an omnivore and eat an assortment of different things depending on financial situation, food requirements, location, all that sort of stuff. So Sarah put in more questions about if we subscribe to the Wickham Reed or consider ourselves part of an earth-based path, what roles does this play into my diet? As I said, currently there's not really any path interaction relationship with what I'm eating. It's just generally I eat food and I enjoy it, and that's mostly it. I don't really have a deep magical relationship with my food, aside from some blessings with meals and honouring the ingredients and the preparation time, and then my death and me becoming meals for something else. So usually when I'm doing that, it's generally either at the start or in the middle or at some point in a meal. I will just give honour and thanks to the growth and energy that went into the production of the ingredients. I'll give honour and thanks to the energy that went into turning the ingredients into a meal. I'll give honour and energy to myself and the process of digestion and transformation as I consume the meal, and then I give honour and reverence and energy to me being consumed as a meal for others, and that may that energy pass on to them. So kind of for me, that's just the cycle and the practice with that, and it doesn't matter what I'm eating, I suppose, really. Not path related, but just general health and choice relation. Like, I don't really drink my coffee with like milk, full cream milk or anything like that. It's generally either on soy or coconut milk or something, whatever is available really, that's aside from a dairy alternative. I still eat cheese and meats and eggs and honey and all that sort of stuff. Meats where I'm financially viable and possible, I will try to buy ethically sourced, either wild meats. So in Australia there is a bit of a kangaroo meat market, which is more of a game meat. So there's different practices in code. It's not farmed at all, so it's quite different. In all truth and reality, I come from a family of people that carry the blood genes for hemochromatosis, which is an excessive amount of iron. So when I was a vegetarian, I never really noticed an iron decrease or iron deficiency in my blood system, because naturally just held onto it and contained it, and so that wasn't really an issue. I don't really eat a lot of red meat as it is now. Generally it's either going to be like poultry, or if I'm eating red meat, it's either going to be like lamb or kangaroo or something like that, and which I try to buy more ethical ones with that. And eggs is usually free range where possible, and honey, I have shares in a hive, which I'm looking forward to getting some honey out of that later this year, I hope. But yeah, I also buy, where possible, organic and well cared for honey that I know that the I'm trying to think of what it is, the title. We'll think of the word and later, but the beekeepers have looked after their bees and had beautiful relationships with them and really look after them. So I try to, where possible, shop ethically, but that can be quite difficult with financial and viabilities, like options and all that sort of stuff, and being able to access markets where I can get it. I work in a supermarket as it is, so I have access to all of that sort of stuff, but really helping farmers and all that sort of stuff is more of a priority and possible priority where I can fulfill that. And just thinking, I would happily be a hunter if I was dealing with wild game and all that sort of stuff. But I live in the middle of a city. There's no real option for that where I am. And I know some people that do that, and I have like mad, amazing respect and props for them, because they'll use everything of the carcass and, well, everything of the animal from the carcass, including the bones and all the flesh and everything like that. So it's really beautiful, honored, and sacred, and they hold so much honor and reverence for the animals that the lives are taken from, and they've gone through vigorous training, both vigorous and rigorous training to really hone and strengthen their skills so that it is more humane where possible. What else has Sarah asked us? What are your thoughts on conventional farming practices, such as factory farming, rousing antibiotic use, growth hormones, GMOs, pesticides, soil erosion, mass agriculture, pollution, etc., and that are harmful to the planet and its inhabitants? I am blissfully unaware to a lot of stuff, but I also have been exposed to a lot of information, especially stepping into the reclaiming path and practice. It really brings out more of an activist nature, and like I said, I try to buy organic and free range and ethical where possible, and it can be difficult for that, and I try to shop at local markets and all that when possible. But strictly finances is a lot of the issue for like my dietary choices and practices. It's not related to my path in any way or form. It's really just in that sense, and I think that's for a lot of people is financially it's really hard to be it can be very hard, sorry. I'm not saying it is but it can be hard to live ethically and sustainably. It's about sacrifice and all that sort of stuff. So it's adjustment. What else do we have in this one? So, what are your thoughts on killing and eating animals, animal products, and your thoughts on how those animals are raised, what they are fed, and how they are slaughtered for consumption? Probably going to get backlash over this, but the way that the current agricultural industry is that the animals that are now we are harvesting and growing purely for feed and food in no way really represent the ancestors that they came from. They've been so domesticated and so changed through that whole entire process, and bred either for milking, bred for meat, all that sort of stuff, that if we were to put them out into the wild, I don't know how they would really fend for themselves. And it's really this hard process of if we were to stop all factory farming and all of the agriculture industry as it now, well, what would happen to all the animals that are there? There is like hundreds of millions of animals that are just purely bred for agriculture and all of this here. And it's really about, well, what do we do with all those animals now? It's all well and good shutting down all these farms, but the farms are feeding them, and what do we do with all of that? And then you also, looking at it, like, it's really hard thinking about, that's a whole entire industry that's funding and feeding people. It's also an industry that is, like, providing food for people, and it's coming down to more, I suppose, just ethical practices where possible, making sure animals are living within the best conditions that we can possibly provide for them, that is humane, and making sure that if there is any, like when the slaughtering process happens, is that it's entirely humane. Or just shifting the whole entire premise, really, just changing it, like, slowly one person at a time, weaning off meat and supporting a fruit and vegetable vegetarian diet, which then you look at, we are then generating more agriculture, which is destroying wilderness to create farmlands, which is destroying ecosystems for native animals to create food for humans. So it's kind of the looking at which is the lesser of evils, really, and that the way the human population is breeding and growing anyway, we're going to get unsustainable with food. We're actually almost getting there now, so from what I understand, that is. That we're just going to lose so much of wilderness just to create agriculture. So it's really trying to find better, smarter ways to be able to harvest and grow foods, and whether it comes down to people growing their own foods in their gardens. So even if they can provide like 10 to 20% of their food requirements via their own gardens, that takes some weight off industry, really. What are your thoughts on food additives and highly processed foods? I can understand food additives from a point of preservatives, and looking at it in the sense of looking into things that are there to help sustain foods and giving them longer shelf lives, and so in that sense it will create less food waste and less food spoilage. But it's really looking at I think it's the storage that we really need to look at in that sense, with preservatives and all that sort of thing. Different climates, different conditions. Where I live in Queensland, we have massive issues with humidity, so that equals mold and pests and all that sort of stuff that are with that. Highly processed foods, that's... Define highly processed, really. I think we have different varying levels of processed, so I think if we're getting to the point where the food is no longer recognizable and that the additives equal more than the actual food content, so whether it be like orange juice that's actually 20% oranges plus everything else, yeah, it's really looking at that kind of balance and restoration there. Thoughts on fair trade and food item sources locally versus far away? I try to shop fair trade where possible. A lot of my coffee is often fair trade. Chocolate will be is often fair trade. I shop at Oxfam a fair bit for my incenses because they also have my favorite incense blends there. We'll often try to buy gifts and stuff there to help support other communities and cultures where they aren't as financially viable as where I live. Hashtag white privilege. And really then, also where I can, I try to go to the markets where possible, but a lot of the times the markets source their food exactly the same place that where I work sources food, so is it really taking the middleman out? It's just shifting the money from a larger corporation to a smaller business, where I suppose that kind of helps the smaller business, but I'd love to be able to just shop direct from the farmer and grower themselves. There's a couple of markets where I know there's the growers do come and sell their produce, so I will try to shop there, and I know the quality is different to that which I normally receive in the store, so it's a nice advantage there, and being able to go to markets and all that sort of stuff and have that option because I have the finances to do that is really changes that availability. I shop local where I can. It's really hard. sometimes, like seasonally, things don't grow that I want, so that means that I'll have to buy imported. But it's really just, yeah, kind of shifting my life and focusing around that. I suppose it's more interrelationship with the seasonal shifts and balances there. What are my thoughts on magic in the kitchen and magical food preparation? I don't like I said, I do some blessings and all that sort of stuff where possible. But aside from that, really I just enjoy food. It's a magical process in itself. Feasting is probably one of my favorite parts of community and public ritual, aside from like the ritual part and socializing, but I just enjoy food and enjoy the process of preparing food often, and don't really give much thought to magical practice behind it. I have done constructed meals where they were magic intentions. I've baked gluten-free brownies that were vegan gluten-free brownies that were spell containers. So I created them as little containers and would speak spells and whisper spells into them, and when they were being consumed, that was when the spell was being activated and taken into the body for transformation. Also, like preparing meals, so I've done like sweet potato roasts and all that sort of stuff, and I'll bless them there. Preparing different meats and stuff, I'll bless it. It's just really depending on what the intention is behind the meal itself as to whether or not I will do magical preparation with the food. Same way I would do for a ritual, really. But I think that is it for all of the questions from Sarah. Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough week, I think, with subjects, really, because we're so varied on this channel with what we have across the week, and no one's view is dictated by another. We're all our own spiritual authorities in both our food consumption and our personal spiritual practices. But to finish off this week, I want to recite something and hope that any wounds or toes that may have been harmed in this process may heal, and any paths that may have been crossed or lines that have been crossed may heal. So if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, whilst these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon, we will mend. And I am as honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends year long. Else the Puck a liar call, give me your hands. Oh, so good night unto all. Give me your hands, if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. So have a beautiful weekend, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed your full moon, and for those that do the work, the sacred torchbearers within the relationships with Hecate, may you've had a beautiful ride of her sacred fires. I hope you all enjoy this upcoming subs week and the topic that they are talking about, and that I will see you all in a couple of weeks' time. And I'm going to Sydney this upcoming week, so it'll be lovely and wonderful, and I get older on Tuesday, which will be wonderful and fun, so I'm looking forward to that. But for now, much love and blessings, and blessed be. Mwah.